Thanks a lot for coming in.
Good morning, happy to be here.
Something about this community appeals to you?
This is a wonderful place to live.
For Kelowna Now, this is Camp Mulgat.
And we're joined by Jordin Tootoo, recently retired NHL hockey player. But tomorrow night, you're going to talk about something that I think we would both agree is more important than hockey. Mental health.
Yes, it's a national epidemic, and you know, for a lot of people who struggle, and for someone who's come out on top, and you know, me being able to share my experiences within our community, you know, we need more people like that. Yeah, I played in the NHL for 13 years, and you know, a lot of people look at us and say, wow, what a great life they live, and they're so lucky. But yet, you know, when you go home at night and something just doesn't sit right in your gut, reaching out and asking for help, you know, was the best thing that I ever decided to do.
So in your case, you were almost midway through your NHL career when alcoholism was starting to threaten the future of that career. And from what I'm reading, it was your own hockey organization that actually reached out and said, we know you have this problem, and you took that offer to get help.
Yes, and you know, it was an opportunity where I knew in order to save my career, to save my life, I couldn't pass up. You know, when Mr. David Poyle, the general manager of the Nashville Predators, brought me into his office, I knew this time this meeting was different. You know, playing in the NHL for 7 years, fighting a battle where a lot of people didn't see, you know, I knew it was my time to get help and to really be vulnerable and to accept that change needs to happen in order to keep doing what I love, and that was to play the game of hockey.
Right. And when sort of people look at your life, there's lots of reasons why you might have wound up with that problem. But let's go back to your childhood, growing up in a land so far away from where most of us are here in Canada, up in Rankin Inlet. Tell me about some of the great things about living in a community like that, and then we'll maybe get to some of the not so great things.
Yeah, so you know, Rankin Inlet is located along the Hudson Bay. 1,700 people, isolated, fly in, fly out only community. You know, when you grow up in a remote community, there's a lot of great things that come out of it. You know, for us Indigenous people, we connect with the land. You know, this is where we heal. This is where we help one another, and that's something that I grew up as a young kid. My father taking us out and hunting for our food, and fishing, and just being present in the moment. You know, at a young age, a lot of kids don't realize how good they have it in these communities. For me, it was a time where I got to just be a kid.
Yeah.
And not being afraid to walk out of the house and wandering around town, because everyone knew everyone. Yeah. And you know, I think that's one thing as a child where when I look back, it puts a smile on my face, because those moments, you can't have it in big cities. You know,
there's this rugged and beauty all around you. I mean, it's harsh, some of the temperatures we hear about it, but it's beautiful.
Totally. And you know, for me, it's something that I hold near and dear to my heart. You know, making the point of getting back home to get out on the land, right, and to just forget about everything that's going on. Right. You know, it's a place where it's hard for me to describe, because you know, people need to experience just being out in the wilderness, and how, you know, all the materialistic things don't matter.
Right.
You know, just being in that moment and reflecting on, you know, everything that I've gone through, it just really,
You're painting a picture like of a spiritual connection to the land and your ancestors and everything.
totally. And you know, like that, in saying that, like I said before, this is where we come together as a community. This is where, you know, I've seen families feuding in town, and when we're out on the land, everyone is out to help each other,
Right.
and you just kind of forget about, you know, what's going on back home.
But there in Rankin Inlet, a lot of difficulties within families, your own family and your friends. I'm sure lots of alcoholism and other drugs. Addiction was everywhere.
Totally. You know, you look at these remote communities and people often wonder, how could that be? You know, in this world, everything's accessible. And the thing within our remote communities, substance abuse is a major factor in tearing families apart. You look back at the generational things that have gone on in the past, and those cycles are handed down. And you know, for me, I knew this when I had the opportunity to get help. It was my time to stop one cycle and start a new cycle for my family.
So you're 8 years sober,
8 years clean and sober.
but it's not easy.
No, it actually gets harder. A lot of people don't realize, you know, when you seek help and go to treatment, a lot of people think life's going to be great when you come out.
Yeah.
Well, it's not. You know, it took good 3-4 years in recovery for me to really be comfortable and content in my own skin and really peel back those layers. And
Do you still feel like you want to reach for that crutch sometimes? Is there still a battle to not?
every day's a battle, you know, and today I can say I'm sober, and that's how I've been living, one day at a time. It's hard work. It takes a lot of hard work, commitment, sacrifice, and really being able to communicate your emotions and your feelings. And you know, for me, that was the hardest part, because in my household, we never talked about how things were. We didn't communicate. There wasn't a open book policy in our house. You know, behind what happened
Right.
behind closed doors stays behind closed doors.
So this is one of the reasons you like to go back to Rankin Inlet and other communities, other Indigenous communities in particular, and just talk like this, just to encourage that conversation.
Absolutely.
And do you feel that things are getting better? Are people presenting themselves and saying, "I've got a problem"?
Yeah,
More?
I think it's been a great experience all around for me to reach out to these remote communities, because a lot of our people have lived similar lives, and for me to be open and honest, you know, it shows that it's okay. You know, it doesn't matter where you come from, what profession you're in, that we all fight a fight no one knows about. And in order to fix those issues, you have to communicate.
Yeah, and especially in isolated communities like Rankin Inlet, along with mental health issues and substance abuse, suicide can sometimes just be, you know, over the top. I think it's been, the numbers I think are getting better now, but I guess an interview with Jordin Tootoo isn't complete without talking about your big brother, Terrence, who, you know, took his life right on the cusp of being, you know, a great hockey player like you.
Yes, and you know, we talk about coping skills. You know, if we only knew how to talk about our feelings and express our feelings, maybe my brother would still be here. You know, there's a million different ways about going things, but ultimately, you know, my brother and I, we cope by using alcohol to suppress our feelings, to just kind of forget about what's going on. And when you're in that dark moment and you don't see light at the end of the tunnel, if he was only able to express his feelings and what he was thinking, maybe he'd still be here. And that's why, for me, giving back to our communities and telling my story, maybe we can help that one person.
Yeah. So how do you frame it when you say you're interacting with kids there? I mean, I think they might sometimes think, he's a big NHL star. He doesn't know what it's like to be me. But you did used to be them. Plus, you're showing that even someone as strong as a guy like you who could fight it out in the NHL can say, hey, I've got a weakness, I've got a problem. Do you see that resonating?
Absolutely. For a lot of our youth, it's hard for them to find someone to talk to. And all you need is, whether it's a family member, a close friend, those conversations can go further than you ever expected. And as a kid coming from a remote community, when I tell my story, I know that people are listening, because I'm living proof of what they're going through. And although I made it to the NHL, I battled demons for years, but I didn't know how to express. I didn't know how to articulate and talk about it. In recovery, it took many years to learn how to do that.
Right.
And by me showing them that, hey, it's okay to be open and honest. It doesn't matter where you come from, what color your skin is. We need to have those conversations within our family household.
You must feel sad, though. You're probably looking at some kids knowing that they're going home to a house where both the parents might be drinking heavily and not doing all the things they should even be doing as parents. What chance does that kid have? And is there more we can do to make sure that the chances for that kid improve?
Well, you look at it, the onus is on parents, right? Showing your kids, leading by example. I remember 5-6 years old watching my parents, party on the weekends and, being scared to go home, where ultimately your home should be your safe haven. I think the biggest thing is, as parents, being unselfish. Being unselfish in regards to doing whatever it takes to help your
So you're
child.
not just reaching out to the kids, you're reaching out to the parents of those kids saying, hey, your kids have a chance, help them have a chance.
Totally. And that's, being a parent myself, this is why I chose to stop one cycle and start a new cycle. Our kids are gonna be pulled in many different directions throughout their childhood, their teenage years. Ultimately, it's having a great foundation at home and showing your kids that the values of our family is what you set in stone by actions.
Right. We talk a lot about mental health. You're at a tough time for a person who plays pro sports. You see guys, they cry when they announce their retirement. You spend your life building to that, and then you have to say, this is the right time, and then, so then it's gone. Are you coping with that?
No, you know what? I got to walk away from the game on my own terms, and having walking away with my health being intact. I'm very fortunate. The style of hockey that I played was pretty rough, and you see a lot of guys who are dealing and coping with mental issues. And for me, I'm glad 8 years ago that I started this journey in my recovery to make sure that when my career is done, that I still have a head on me and my body's intact. And for me now, you know, having my wife and you know, 2 healthy daughters, this is where I get to say, you know, now I have my family
Right.
to look forward to.
And had you limped across the finish line of your career still drinking to some extent, it might not be the same?
No, 8 years ago I would have been done. If I didn't check myself into rehab, you know, my career would have been over. You know, it gave me another 8 years of playing in the NHL. It took a lot of hard work, but that's a sacrifice you pay in order to do something you love.
Right. Well, that's about all the time we have, but I really appreciate you coming in, passing that all on, and I'm hoping that people are listening to you and making a connection.
Thank you. My pleasure.
And so we should just tell our viewers that this event is at the Innovation Center, 6 o'clock tomorrow night, Wednesday night, and you're going to be telling your story.
Yep.
All right.
6 p.m. Innovation Center. See you all there.
I appreciate it. Jordin Tootoo, and thank you for watching Kelowna Now.